The smell of chlorine never really leaves you. It gets into your hair, your clothes, the thin skin behind your ears. After 3 years of working the front desk at Clearwater Aquatic Center in Tempe, Arizona, I don't even notice it anymore. It's just what breathing smells like. 6:45 a.m. The overhead fluorescents flicker the way they always do before the heating kicks in. I'm logging lane reservations into the ancient desktop, the one with the sticky E key, while Coach Ashton runs her 6 a.m. lap class in Pool B. I can hear her through the wall, her whistle, her voice cutting clean over the water noise like she was built for it. 2 shorts, 1 long. That means someone's drifting out of their lane. I know her whistle patterns. That's the kind of thing that happens when you share a building with someone for 3 years and have made a dedicated, consistent, completely pathetic effort not to look directly at them. Her name is Reeve Ashton, head swim coach, former Division I competitor. The kind of woman who walks into a room and the air rearranges itself out of respect. She is also technically my supervisor, which is the universe's idea of comedy. My name is Elliot Voss. I am 24 years old. I have a degree in communications I haven't used and a talent for making the Tuesday morning lane schedule look really organized. I am the person who knows where the spare goggles are, which vending machine accepts crumpled 5s, and exactly how many tiles are on the ceiling of the main lobby. 212. I've counted. I am not the kind of person things happen to. I am the kind of person who hands things to other people so things can happen to them. I am efficient, reliable, and functionally invisible, which, until recently, suited me fine. The door to Pool B swings open at 7:43, same as always. Cold air from the natatorium, the sound of water. And then Reeve Ashton, clipboard in hand, damp at the edges, moving like the building belongs to her, because it does kind of. She stops at the desk, doesn't look up from her clipboard. Morning, Elliot. The 8 a.m. private lane. Did Martinez confirm? Yesterday afternoon. Good. She makes a note, still doesn't look up. There's a leak under the pace clock in lane 4. Maintenance no? I called them at 7. Good. She turns to go. She always turns to go. I always watch her go, for exactly the amount of time that is professionally acceptable, which I have calculated is approximately 2 seconds. I give it 3. This is the part where I tell you things were fine, that I had it under control. That 3 years of adjacent proximity to Reeve Ashton had built up a healthy, reasonable immunity. I would be lying. The truth is that immunity requires distance, and distance requires that the other person not, one random Thursday in October, stop in the middle of the lobby and say, without looking up from her clipboard, "Do you swim, Elliot?" I blinked. What? Swim. She looked up then. Dark eyes, serious the way the deep end is serious. You work at an aquatic center. Do you actually swim? I mean, I know how. That's not the same thing. I'm aware. She studied me for a moment in that way she has, like she's calculating something. Then she said, I have a private instruction slot that opened up Thursday evenings, 6 p.m. I'm looking to fill it. The silence lasted exactly long enough for my brain to misfire 3 times. I could put together a list of interested members. I'm offering it to you, she said. Free. Staff development. She looked back down at her clipboard. Think about it. She was gone before I remembered I had a mouth. Music. I sat back down at the desk, stared at the E key on the keyboard, pressed it 4 times for no reason. E. My coworker Becca materialized from the break room with a protein bar and looked at me with the precise expression of someone who has watched a car slowly drive into a ditch. What just happened to your face? She asked. Nothing, I said. Your face says nothing, but your eyes say everything. Coach Ashton offered me a private swim lesson. Becca stared. Reeve Ashton. Yes. Offered you a lesson? Yes, for free. She called it staff development. Becca unwrapped her protein bar very slowly. Elliot, baby, honey, My beloved coworker and friend. She pointed at me with the bar. That woman has never offered a single staff member anything for free in the history of this building. She once made Marcus pay for the goggles he left in lane 3. Maybe she's being generous. Reeve Ashton doesn't do generous. She does deliberate. I looked back at the desk, at the lane schedule, at the perfect, manageable order of my Tuesday morning. It's nothing, I said. It was not nothing. If you've ever been offered something you wanted so badly, you immediately looked for a reason to say no, subscribe right now. Because it gets so much worse before it gets better. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I said yes the same way you say yes to a root canal, with a terrible certainty that it's probably good for you and definitely going to hurt. Thursday at 6 p.m., Pool B is empty except for the hum of the filtration system and Reeve Ashton standing at the edge of lane 2, stopwatch around her neck, looking exactly like someone who has never once second-guessed a decision in their life. I came out of the women's locker room in my old navy one-piece and felt approximately the same as a person showing up to a gallery opening in a Costco poncho. She looked at me, just once, top to bottom, the way coaches look, assessing, not unkind. You said you know how to swim, she said. Correct. Show me. I got in the water. I swam a lap. It was not graceful. It was functional. Survival swimming. The kind you learn at a community pool at age 7 and never really refine. When I reached the far end and turned back, she was walking alongside the lane, watching. I got out. She handed me a towel without being asked. I didn't know what to do with that. Your breathing's wrong, she said. That tracks. You're holding it. You should be exhaling in the water, inhaling on the turn. You're doing the opposite. I've been doing the opposite for 17 years. I know. She made a note on her clipboard. We'll fix it. We. She said we like it was already decided, like this was already a thing that was going to continue happening. I should have found that presumptuous. Instead, my body did something my brain hadn't authorized, which was relax, just slightly, for the first time since I'd said yes. We worked for 40 minutes. She was patient in the way that only people with extremely high standards are patient, precisely, specifically, without softening the correction but without cruelty either. When I finally exhaled correctly on a turn and my stroke opened up for half a length, something shifted in her face. Not a smile exactly, more like recognition. There, she said quietly. There, like she'd been looking for it. We were cooling down at the edge of lane 2 when we heard it. Marcus, the afternoon deck guard, talking loudly near the equipment closet to one of the high school kids who'd come in for club practice. Just a desk job anyway. It's not like she's actually stuff. I didn't move. I had heard versions of this before. Desk jobs at aquatic centers exist somewhere below the actual athletes and coaches in the internal hierarchy, and I had made my peace with it, or I thought I had. But before I could decide whether to be invisible about it or not, Reeve Ashton set down her clipboard. She walked over to the equipment closet with the kind of unhurried authority that parts crowds. I couldn't hear all of it. I heard enough. Elliot Voss keeps this facility running. You want to know how I know that? Because every single morning, everything I need is ready before I ask for it. If you can say the same about your job, then you've earned the right to comment on hers. She came back, picked up her clipboard, didn't look at me. Same time next week? She said. My throat was doing something embarrassing. Yeah, I managed. Same time. She wrote something on her clipboard and left. I stood at the edge of the pool for a long moment, water still in my ears, and thought, I am in so much trouble. Silence. I didn't tell Becca what happened. I told myself it was because there was nothing to tell. A coaching session. A reprimand to Marcus that had nothing to do with me personally. The natural behavior of a professional who expected professional standards from her staff. The problem was the clipboard. When she left, I saw what she'd written in the margin next to my name in the Thursday slot. Good ears. Catches on fast. Doesn't quit. 3 things she'd observed about me that I had never said out loud about myself. I went home and stared at my ceiling for 2 hours. 6 weeks of Thursday evenings, 6 weeks of 6 p.m. in Pool B. Just the two of us and the filtration hum and the particular quality of late October light through the high windows. My breathing got better. My turns got better. I stopped feeling like I was drowning and started feeling like I was swimming. Actually swimming. The way people look when they've stopped fighting the water and started working with it. Reeve was not warmer, exactly, but more present. She started explaining why instead of just what, the physics of drag, the mechanics of the shoulder roll, the way your lungs work differently when you stop being afraid. She taught like someone who believed that understanding was more useful than obedience. I caught myself looking forward to Thursdays with a ferocity I found honestly alarming. The trouble started on the 5th week when Becca found the schedule. "You're still doing this?" She was looking at the staff calendar on the break room whiteboard where I'd blocked off Thursday evenings under pool access. Staff. "It's just lessons." "Elliot, look at me." She put both hands on my shoulders. "When did you last cancel a Thursday for anything?" "I don't. Casey's birthday, you canceled." "I sent a gift. Lydia's going away drinks. You canceled." "I had a thing." "You had Reeve Ashton." Becca released me. "I'm not judging, I am observing." "It's a free lesson." "The lesson was one time. You've now had 6. I didn't have an answer for that, because the answer was the problem. Music. The 5th Thursday, it rained. Not relevant, except that it meant the parking lot flooded and the evening lap swimmers cancelled. And so at 6 p.m., it was just us. And the building felt emptier than usual, and the water was very still. We finished the session. Reeve was making notes. I was sitting at the edge of the pool, feet in the water, working up to saying thank you in a way that didn't sound like the 14 other things I actually meant by it. "Why me?" I asked instead. She looked up. "What?" "The lesson. Becca reminded me that you don't offer things." "So?" I looked at the water. "Why me?" Reeve was quiet for long enough that I thought she was going to redirect site staff development, close the conversation the way she closed most conversations, efficiently, without loose ends. Instead, she said, "Do you know what I watch for when I'm coaching?" I shook my head. "Fighters." She set down her clipboard. "Not athletes who are naturally good. Those exist. But I watch for people who fight for every inch against a body or a habit that's working against them, because those are the people who actually improve." She looked at me directly, which she didn't always do. "You fight for every inch, Elliot. You've been doing it since the day you started here. I just wanted to see what would happen if someone gave you a lane." The sentence landed somewhere in the center of my chest and stayed there. I just wanted to see what would happen, and then I made my mistake. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't even particularly stupid. It was the kind of error you make when you've been sitting in a quiet natatorium with someone for 6 weeks and you've started to feel like the space between you is smaller than it is. I said, "There's a scholarship. The Aquatic Center is offering one for staff pursuing certifications. I was thinking about applying. Coaching track." Her expression didn't change, exactly. But something shifted. "You'd be applying to become a coach," she said. "It's just an idea. Preliminary, I know about the scholarship, Elliot." Her voice was careful in a way it hadn't been before. "I'm on the selection committee." Oh. The silence that followed was the kind that has weight, texture, duration, long enough to hear the filtration system cycle. Long enough for me to understand completely what I'd just done. "I didn't know," I said. I swear that wasn't." "I know." She said it quickly, picked up her clipboard. "It's fine." It was not fine. I could see it wasn't fine in the way she didn't look at me, and the way she moved toward the door with 2 extra inches of distance between us that hadn't been there before. "Reeve, I'll see you Thursday," she said, and she was gone. Silence. I stayed at the pool's edge for a long time. The water had gone completely still. I thought about the way she'd said I just wanted to see what would happen. And then I thought about how it must look from where she was standing, on a scholarship committee, having privately coached a staff member for 6 weeks, who then casually mentioned the scholarship. I thought about the clipboard note. Good ears. Catches on fast. I thought, she thinks I was working an angle. And the worst part, the actual worst part, was that I hadn't been. I had just been happy. For 6 Thursdays, I had just been a person in a pool learning to breathe correctly, and I had been stupidly, completely happy. I went home, stared at my ceiling, didn't sleep. She didn't cancel Thursday. I almost wished she had. The 7th session was professional, precise. She corrected my technique, made notes, gave appropriate feedback. She was not cold. Reeve Ashton was never technically cold. She was complete, fully present, fully controlled, fully behind glass. I had seen behind the glass. That was the problem. And now it was sealed. I didn't apply for the scholarship. I told myself it was integrity. The small, honest voice in my head said it was cowardice. Then, in November, our assistant manager position was eliminated due to budget cuts, and the restructuring took out 2 other roles. And somehow, in the reorganization, I ended up with a letter from HR informing me that my position was being reclassified to part-time effective the 1st of the month. I sat in the break room with the letter and did the math. Part-time hours, part-time pay. My apartment was not a part-time pay situation. "How bad?" Becca asked, reading my face. "I need to find something. Full-time? Or move?" I folded the letter. "Or both." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "The scholarship covers a certification program and a stipend." "Becca, I know, but it's there. She's on the committee. She's one person on the committee." Becca leaned forward. "Elliot, I've watched you come in here for 3 years and be the best at a job nobody notices. You have done every single thing right. You are allowed to want something." I looked at the letter, at the number at the bottom. "She'll think it's worse now," I said. "Before it looked like coincidence. Now it looks calculated." "Or," Becca said carefully, "it looks like a person who needs the thing she's applying for." Music. I didn't apply. I told myself I'd find another way. I picked up a weekend shift at a sports supply store and started looking at apartments in Mesa where the rent was lower. I kept showing up on Thursdays because I didn't know how to stop. I kept the sessions professional. I kept my breathing correct. I did not mention the scholarship or the letter or the fact that my lunch had started being a protein bar and optimism. And then one Thursday evening, mid-December, I arrived at Pool B at 5:55 and found it already occupied. Reeve was in lane 1. Not coaching, swimming, actual laps, flat out, the kind of swimming that isn't for anyone's benefit but your own, the kind that's for something that needs burning off. I stood at the door. She didn't see me. I should have left. Instead, I watched. She swam like the water owed her something, like she was settling a debt. 4 lengths hard, and then she stopped at the wall, breathing, and turned, and saw me. We looked at each other. "I'm early," I said. "Brilliant." She pushed her goggles up. There was something different in her face in that moment, unguarded in the way that exhaustion produces before the controls come back up. She looked tired. Not physically, the other kind. "The committee met today," she said. I went still. "The scholarship, they selected the finalist?" She pulled herself out of the water. "It wasn't in my hands to give it to you, just so you know." She reached for her towel. "Another committee member asked why you hadn't applied. I didn't have an answer." The silence that followed was the longest of my life. "I thought," I started. "I know what you thought." She said it simply, without cruelty. You thought it would look like you'd been positioning yourself, working me. She met my eyes. But you weren't. No, I know. She looked away. I knew that 2 weeks after I offered you the lesson. She wrapped the towel around her shoulders. That doesn't solve anything, but I wanted you to know. She walked past me toward the locker room. At the door she stopped, didn't turn around. Elliot, apply for the spring cycle, under a different committee. I'll recuse myself. A pause. You should be doing this job, not the desk. The door swung shut behind her. I stood in the empty natatorium, the only sounds the filtration hum and my own breathing. Finally, correct. Silence. Becca was waiting in the break room with 2 terrible vending machine coffees. She looked at my face and said, "Tell me everything." I told her everything. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said gently, "She recused herself. Do you understand what that means? She removed herself to give you a clear path." I know. That's not professional courtesy, Elliot. That's something else. I looked at my coffee. It doesn't matter. Why? Because wanting it felt like another kind of mistake. Because I had already misjudged the distance once and I was terrified of what happened if I did it again. Because I don't know how to have something I want without waiting for it to go wrong, I said. Becca looked at me for a long moment. I know, she said, but maybe someone's trying to change that. January. The spring scholarship cycle opened. I applied, not because of Reeve, or not entirely, because Becca was right and I was tired of handing off the things I actually wanted, because 3 years of organized lane schedules and sticky e-keys had not used anything that actually lived in me. Because when I finally got my breathing right in the water, it felt like remembering something I'd always known. The application took me 4 nights. I wrote about the aquatic center, about learning to swim at 24 in a lane at 6 p.m. while someone walked alongside in the dark. I didn't name her. I didn't have to. I submitted it on a Thursday. I didn't have a lesson that day. We'd mutually, wordlessly agreed to take January off, the professional version of I need to clear my head. The building was the same. The fluorescent lights flickered the same. The E-key was still sticky. I was looking up pool certifications on my break when I heard the main door. Reeve, not heading for Pool B, heading for the desk. She stopped in front of me, set something down. A form, a scheduling document. I didn't register what it was. The spring submission portal closed this morning, she said. I know. I saw your name. I looked up. She was looking at me the way she'd looked at me in the pool that first night. The way that wasn't unkind, but also wasn't soft. Just present, all the way down, nothing behind glass. I haven't read it, she said. It's not my committee, but I saw your name and She stopped. Started again in the careful way of someone who has rehearsed the first 3 words and not the rest. I wanted to say that I know you didn't come to these lessons with an angle. I knew it early and I let the situation make me act like I didn't, and that wasn't fair to you. Reeve, I'm not finished. She exhaled. You asked me why I offered you the lesson. I gave you the professional answer. The truthful answer is that I have watched you work in this building for 3 years, and I have watched you be the person nobody thanks and everybody relies on. And I have watched you pretend that's enough. Her jaw tightened very slightly. And I wanted to give you a lane, just yours, to see what you did with it. The lobby was quiet. The fluorescents hummed. And, I said, and you swam. Something in her face shifted, not a smile, but what lives underneath one. Every correction, every week, you swam. I stood up from behind the desk. I don't fully know why. It just felt wrong to have the desk between us for this part. I applied because of you, I said, not for your committee or the scholarship. I applied because you were the first person in 3 years to tell me I was fighting for something worth fighting for. I stopped. And because I'm tired of handing off the things I actually want. She looked at me. What do you want? She asked. And this was the question, the one from November, the one she'd left unanswered in an empty natatorium, the one I'd been carrying ever since. I want the certification, I said, and I want to stop pretending the Thursday evenings were just swimming lessons. The silence that followed was different from all the other silences, not waited, held. The way you hold your breath on a turn. They weren't, Reeve said, just swimming lessons. She was standing close enough that I could see the faint, chlorine-worn patience in the collar of her jacket. She reached out, slowly, deliberately, and adjusted the lanyard of my staff badge, which had been crooked. Her fingers were there for just a moment, then gone, but her eyes didn't go anywhere. I get off at 7, she said. I know your schedule, I said. I built your schedule. And for the first time in 3 years, in the lobby of the Clearwater Aquatic Center at 4:15 on a Thursday afternoon, Reeve Ashton smiled at me, full and unguarded and real, like she'd been keeping it somewhere safe and had finally decided I could have it. Music. We went to the diner 2 blocks east. We sat in a booth for 3 hours. She ordered black coffee. I ordered the thing with the most steps on the menu out of spite. She told me about her college career, the injury that ended it, the 10 years of coaching that became the thing she actually loved more than competing. I told her about communications degrees and sticky keyboards and ceiling tiles. She said, 212? I stared at her. How did you... I counted them too. She wrapped her hands around her mug. The first winter I was here, when I was still figuring out if I wanted to stay. She noticed. She'd been noticing the whole time, the same way I had. I sat with that for a moment. You could have just said hello, I said. You could have looked up from the desk. Fair. Music. The Spring Scholarship Committee selected 3 candidates in February. My name was one of them. Becca cried. Actual tears. In the break room, over a vending machine coffee. Stop, I told her. I will not, she said. I started the certification program in March. Reeve drove me to the first session because my car was in the shop and she offered and I said yes, efficiently, immediately, without looking for a reason to say no. 3 months after the lobby, 6 months after the first Thursday lesson, 1 year after I first started counting ceiling tiles like a person with too much unused interior life, I showed up at Pool B for an entirely different reason. I had a class. My class. 8 adults learning to breathe correctly in water. Reeve was in lane 1 doing her own morning laps. When I walked the deck before the session, I passed her lane. She stopped at the wall, looked up, said nothing. She didn't need to. I'd learned to read the things she kept quiet. Music. Epilogue. Marcus applied for a management position at a different aquatic center in the spring. He was rejected inside of 10 days. Becca told me with a precision and joy that suggested she had been waiting to report this information for months. It was, I told Reeve later, the second best thing that happened to me that year. She gave me the look she reserves for statements she finds both ridiculous and accurate. Second best, she repeated. By a significant margin, I confirmed. She shook her head, the way she does when she's not going to argue but wants the record to show she considered it. Then she handed me a coffee, black, because she's still Reeve, and went back to her clipboard. I looked at the lane schedule in my hands, the smell of chlorine in my hair, in my clothes, in the thin skin behind my ears. I used to think it was just what breathing smelled like here. Now I think it's just what home smells like. If you've ever wanted something so badly you invented 17 reasons not to have it, this one's for you. Subscribe for a new story every week. And activate the bell, because you don't want to miss what comes next.